日本からプレゼントしながらお誕生日おめでとう。見てみましょう。
Мур. З днем народження. Плейбек театр. Давайте подивимось.
Happy 50th anniversary to Playback.
Yeah, congratulations.
We enjoyed a short video, an initiative called Happy Birthday Playback, created by Damilola Apotieri. In it, playback groups from around the world offer birthday wishes in their native languages. You can see the video also in our YouTube channel, Center for Playback Theatre. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session of the First Generation Speak series, part of the global celebrations of 50 years of playback theatre. We are gathering from across the world to honor the pioneers who shaped playback theatre into what it is today. These interviews celebrate their journeys, their wisdom, and their impact across cultures and communities. Today, we turn our attention to the African playback community, where playback has been a space for healing, transformation, social justice, education, and profound human connections. My name is Tzveta Baliyska, and I'm honored to be coordinator and host of these global celebrations and a board member of the Center for Playback Theatre, also founder of Playback Theatre here and now, Bulgaria. You might also know me from the First Generation Speak series, which continued throughout the year. If you missed any of the previous interviews, you can find them all in our YouTube channel. We will post the link. We have also uploaded highlights from the 50th birthday celebrations we had in 10th of November, including special greetings, behind the scenes footage and visual timeline of playback theatre history. If you haven't already, follow us on Facebook and Instagram for regular updates and inspiration. The Center for Playback Theatre, founded by Jonathan Fox, supports training, ethics, accreditation, and global initiatives. Together with our partner, the International Playback Theatre Network, IPTN, we're marking this milestone year with this interview series, online peer supervisions, the global performance initiative stories that shaped us, listening hour sessions, and the big celebration we had on November 10th. A big thank you to those working behind the scenes: CPT Board, Beata Somuji, Damilola Apotieri, Deborah Scott, Igor Lubitov, Mina Mo, Radhika Jain, Shewa Donyo, Sulinda Kash, Shikan Chang, and myself. And we are also just welcoming new members coming on board soon. And IPTN core team, Andrea Sandoval, Sharei Halei, Ferran Loengo, Kimberly Daly, Roberto. Today's tech support is provided by Damilola Apotieri and Beata Somuji and Shewa Donyo. Thank you so much for that. Before we begin, a few notes. Please keep your microphone off during the sessions. You will be welcome to use the chat to comment or reflect. Captions are available via the Show Captions translation button, but note they are auto-generated. This session is being recorded and will be made available after the event. It will be available to be watched online after the event. By remaining here, you agree to the recording. And now I will present you our amazing speakers today. Samson Setumo is a seasoned applied drama practitioner and strategist from Botswana. He introduced playback theater in his country and continues to bridge the worlds of theater, social change, and leadership development. Lesley Palmer is a creative arts therapist and playback theater practitioner from South Africa. With over 20 years of experience, her work centers on trauma, grief, and community healing through embodied practices. Kathy Barolsky is an associate professor at NTNU in Norway and a playback theater researcher and practitioner. She founded Drama for Life Playback Theatre and has worked extensively on social justice and post-apartheid storytelling. Welcome. I'm so happy you are here with us. So now, if you want, you can say a few welcoming words before I start with the questions.
I'll greet. Hello, everybody. Always wonderful to make connections in the playback field internationally. Feel very much on the tip of Africa in Cape Town, and the connection and the collaboration is really welcome. And how nice to be invited to this interview to share some of, the history of playback in Cape Town.
Kathy?
Sam, are you going to go ahead? Go ahead, Sam. Jump in there.
Hey, greetings from Gaborone, Botswana. I'm also really, truly excited to be here today. It's been a long, marvelous, and memorable journey in the world of playback, and I can't wait, to share my excitement and my stories. Thank you so much. Looking forward to the discussion.
And just to thank you to CPT, to IPTN, that we are having this incredible 50-year celebration and creating this beyond incredible archive of history of playback theatre around the world. And it's just such a gift for all of us. And I'm just so happy to be here with my dear colleagues from down south. I live up in Norway, in Trondheim, and I'm sitting in a wardrobe, an artist's wardrobe at a theatre. I just did a playback theatre workshop, which is amazing. I'm having a whole day of playback today. So I feel like I'm coming back home and being able to talk about how playback has shaped me through my connection of doing it in South Africa is just, I'm really looking forward to that.
Thank you so much. And please, all of you that are here, write in the chat from where you are with us. And maybe you can write the name of your company if you have one, or whatever you want, so we get to know you. I will start with a question to three of you. How did your journey with playback theater begin? When and how did you first encounter the form, and what did it felt like? Lesley?
So my first encounter was probably a year or two. The dates actually elude me, but it was the early noughties. I think it was 2002. I'd been back in South Africa from studying as a drama therapist for a couple of years and made my way with dear friend and colleague Paula Kingwell to the US to attend a drama therapy conference. And it was there that I had my first experience of playback theatre. And I was totally blown away. I was like, what is this? you know, and on my drama therapy training, there hadn't been any introduction to playback theatre. So I just thought it was remarkable. Paula had had some training on her drama therapy program in it. And so we literally were sharing a dorm room as, fairly recently qualified drama therapists, and decided we have to start a company and start playing with this methodology. And we basically did that. We came back to Cape Town, and we included Heather Schiff, also a drama therapist, Chris Wildman, a music therapist, as a sort of like the starting collaboration. We got hold of actors, we held auditions ultimately, and we formed the Bonfire Theatre Company way back then, and have been playing ever since. We had a transition time where we renamed ourselves Brown Spring. But yeah, that was the journey. And for me, I think what really was almost like a potent core, you know, at the time, was the issues in South Africa that we were working with, you know, in some ways are overwhelming in the extent of trauma, grief, displacement, intergenerational trauma. And as therapists, the question was, how do we meet the vast need? And for us, I think that was really key, is that playback theatre enabling bigger audiences that would have a reach. And I suppose we'll have a chance to talk more about it, but it's a really good fit for a South African audience, playback theatre, because as Africans, we are good at coming together. Our community healing space is what is known in this land and in the people of this land. And so I think it's just been a privilege to form a company, to work with the company, and to find our way. Yeah.
Thank you, Lesley. And Samson?
Thank you so much, Baliyska. Yeah, for me, in my work as a development worker, sometimes in 2000, actually it was in 1999, where we were invited to go on a US program, a visitor program. So when I came back, there was another opportunity. So I recommended another young person that I was working with, who is also a creative. And it was him, when he came back, he was so excited about this form, you know, playback theatre, you know, he couldn't stop talking about it. So I joined him, we researched more about it. And as fate will have it, 2 years later, we were on the plane to attend our very first training at Vassar College. And, you know, we didn't know what to expect, because this was something that we have just heard about, and it sounded like very different. And so when we got there, the experience was just amazing. You know, what I think attracted me and hooked me to the form is that when I went, before I went there, I had lost my sister like a few months back before I went there. So I was still kind of grieving. And over the days, I saw how people were telling their stories, and I could see they are relieved. But I was struggling with my story. I thought it's still raw, it's fresh, and I didn't know what would happen. So I was resisting to tell the story. And the days went by, and there was this day, I think the facilitator was Joe. And there was this day, and I think almost everybody had shared their stories. They had sat on the teller's seat except me. And on that day, you know, Joe looked at me when she offered for anybody with a story. She didn't say anything. She just looked at me with those loving eyes. And I could see in those eyes, she was saying, I know you have a story, and this is your opportunity to tell that story. So I went up and sat in the teller's chair. But on my way to sit there, I decided I'm not going to tell the real story that I was really having. I'll just tell some other funny story. But the moment I sat there, this story was forcing itself out of me. And I just shared about the story of how I watched my sister wasting away and ultimately the death. And the players played it back to me. Oh my God, that was the most amazing experience I've ever. I felt a load being lifted off me. I found healing on that day. And because, the actors were amazing. They didn't play back to me the sorrowful stuff that I was sharing. Instead, they decided to pick on the beautiful moments that were in the story. They reinforced that and played it back. And now I saw everything from a positive light, and the weight was gone. And I was hooked for life because nobody had to tell me, nobody had to convince me. I experienced it for myself. So I think that is how I got hooked, and I believe I'll be hooked until I breathe my last. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think many of the people that we are here connect with what you have said, and we are hooked for life because of this experience. Thank you so much for this lovely story. Kathy?
Yeah, my journey of where playback began for me wasn't like so many kind of a romantic kind of capturing moment. It was I was doing my master's in applied theatre as part of the same program as Sam at the time, Drama for Life, which was is a postgraduate program, and with a specific focus on HIV and AIDS education. And we were exploring different applied theatre methods and, doing that theoretically, practically, but with playback, we weren't going to be able to explore it deeply practically. But Warren Neebe, he had us for a class, and he was introducing playback theatre to us, and he played a video. And back in the day, 2008, perhaps weren't very good at knowing how to capture the beauty of playback, and a bunch of people making funny sounds, and I didn't quite understand what it was all about because it seemed so abstract. But then, thank goodness, it was a class that we were having, and Warren explained about what playback is about and the concept. And suddenly I thought, wow, what really stands out for me is this idea of personal storytelling, because I was a part of a program, an applied theatre program, but we weren't telling our personal stories. And for me, that was really, really interesting. And luckily at the time, a few months later, I think it was, we had the Drama for Life conference and Bonfire with Lesley and Heather and Paula and others came. And I got to see playback theatre live in a performance, and it completely changed my life from that moment, because I knew that I had found my home. This is what I wanted to do, and I knew that then I wanted to include playback as part of my research. I had no idea how and in what way, but that was the start of the journey. And start of a journey that then also led me to meeting Sam at Manhattanville College, who was doing advanced training that year, and I did not know he was going to be there. And so it felt like just the stars were aligning, that this is where I was meant to be. And I still feel that way.
Yes, yes, thank you. And how did playback theater resonate with the challenges and the cultural and social context of your country? So maybe three of you can say something. Lesley, you can start if you want. What are the challenges and the social context?
Yeah, I mean the context, as I said, is in South Africa is certainly audiences that have always experienced trauma, intergenerational trauma. The challenge of that has been for us as players to be treated with a lot of care in containing and holding stories. As Samson shared, his story was obviously held so beautifully. And I think because Brownfire and now Groundspring has got quite a therapeutic theatre aspect to how we think about stories, containing has been an important question for us. And I suppose we've always felt that the work in South Africa has been really kind of rich, and that we've been able to meet audiences, that our audiences are ready to go there. We seem to be familiar with storytelling. But it would be unusual for us to have to work hard to warm up our audiences to sharing stories. I think we're a connecting kind of people. I wonder if my colleagues here would agree, but I feel like we're warm-hearted people. And as much as there have been these horrific divides in South Africa, there is such a desire to find and experience and build our shared humanity, and to kind of build bridges. And I think playback theatre has been a significant approach in doing that kind of work on a really individual and human level. And so deep resonance. I mean, I think the underpinnings of playback would find many roots down here, and the spaces have always felt well resonating. And saying that, we've also found our own ways of adapting, of making it our own, of including, depending who is playing in the company. We've worked with vast numbers of actors and musicians that have come through and worked with us in this kind of growing circle of influence and support. We include, traditional story and ritual, and are learning constantly from each other how to play. We haven't, as a company, had formal training, so we've been able to invent forms, work with who is there, what resources we have, to hopefully also create a highly adaptable playback theatre form for our context. But I think overall, what I would want to say is that community healing spaces are inherently like the indigenous wisdom of what's here, that is in this land, and our audiences use it well. In my experience, it's deeply resonant.
And Samson, how is it in your area, and how it was bringing playback to Botswana, and what challenges did you face?
Thank you. As Lesley was saying, bringing playback theatre to Botswana on a bigger picture, it was easy because we have a culture of storytelling, which is really ingrained in our people's DNA. Even as we were growing up, I remember my own growing up, there were no televisions, and so the only sort of entertainment in the evening that we had would be to listen to stories and to tell stories. So most of Botswana, especially of my generation, they easily identify with storytelling. So that is why it was quite really readily acceptable, and they could identify with that storytelling thing. And storytelling also, it has got its own rituals, and playback theater also has rituals. So it felt like really home for most people that took part. And what surprised me though was, all my life I had worked with improvisation theater and scripted plays where they are ready-made. You bring to them what is ready, and most of it was like realism. We rarely used symbolism and imagery as we use in playback theater. So I was skeptical if our people would really tune into the symbolism. I thought they would be lost. But as you tell the story, you are forced to really tap to symbolism. And the first time when we had an audience and we used symbolism, I was surprised and shocked when we were debriefing to hear people actually saying what worked for them was that very symbolism. And the way the interpretation of the symbolism and how it resonated with their various challenges or joys in life, it really surprised me. And I realized that, really, playback theater is meant and is suitable for everybody. As long as you are a human being, you qualify to partake from it. So it was really great. The only challenge that I had, you'd know that time I was like the only one who had experienced it and who knew it. So just like Kathy was saying, trying to translate it to the members in the group to know how they can, because they were so scared by the fact that you are there and you don't know how the play is going to start and how it's going to end. They're used to, you get on stage, you know exactly when it starts and where it ends and what's your role. So the idea of just being there, they felt like very vulnerable. So that was the challenge to really work with them, to get to trust in the process, to trust their fellow actors, and slowly but surely they started letting go and getting into it. Even our audiences also, they loved it. I loved how I would see them, their jaws on the floor to realize that I've just told these guys the story, and immediately they brought it back to me. So it was really amazing that way.
Yes. And Kathy, how is it in your region? And also, what was like founding Drama for Life Playback Theatre, and what did you envision, and your obstacles, if you had any?
Yeah, so I mean, I think, both Sam and Lesley have mentioned just how much I think, the ideas around playback theatre are so much a part of African culture, storytelling, that the oral, that kind of oral tradition is so present. And I think, I'd heard a lot from my kind of colleagues in the West about difficulties of kind of like drawing stories out of people was kind of like drawing blood out of a stone. And I always thought, oh my word, thank goodness I've never struggled with that in a South African context and encountered that. And it is because, yeah, also in terms of, historically, South Africa, when apartheid ended, we had the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, where perpetrators and victims, told their stories, and perpetrators, telling their stories as part of a process of seeking amnesty, that they wouldn't be arrested and charged. But that was, a very specific context and setting. And what was left out of that was a larger platform for ordinary citizens, all South Africans, to tell their stories and, the trauma and the violence that people had experienced as everyday citizens, growing up in apartheid, and how that had continued in post-apartheid South Africa. And I think that, playback theatre has really, plays a role in that, because those stories are so important to be given space. And also that, what was the other thing that I wanted to mention? That I think also that because we have internalized, I say we as South Africans, I as a South African, but we've also internalized apartheid structures and thinking. So even though apartheid has ended, we still are kind of categorize each other very strongly racially. We have very clear ideas and stereotypes of who we are just by somebody opening their mouth and the way that they speak, their accent, their race. And playback has been so extraordinary in that way, because we've had to, when we listen to each other's stories as a playback group in training, or even, in public spaces, that we can't go to those broad brushstrokes of who we think the other is. That we can have these assumptions as, yes, this is a colored person, they've got this background, they're like this, they do this. And then they come and they tell a story that is completely different. And, that goes for, people across the racial, ethnic, different spectrums. And it's so humbling, because it just forces us as South Africans to really listen deeply, because I think South Africans, and people can argue with me here, that we love to tell stories, but sometimes we find it also very hard to listen. And I think that's what is so incredible about playback, is that we really have to listen. Yeah. So I think that's just sort of one of the challenges.
And Lesley, what role has playback theatre played in your work with trauma and grief in South Africa communities?
I actually want to start on something that Kathy's just mentioned and amplified a bit, because for me, this is actually at the heart of the potency of the work that we do, is what happens in the company itself. This group of players, which is really diverse, and, moving people come in and out and back in again, this sort of widening community. We have a WhatsApp group, as I guess most playback theatre companies have. And there are people on there from like years and years and years and years back that we haven't seen, but won't leave the WhatsApp group, because it's like a community holding, and people who've ended up all over the world, but will come back to Cape Town and will come back into rehearsal. And there's something about the community that we create as playback theatre companies, that every week rehearsing, listening to each other's stories. Yeah, like Kathy said, where we get to really do the work ourselves of challenging our assumptions, getting to know another person's reality, because we constantly stepping into their shoes in the playing, where we forced to listen, where we're called out if we haven't listened, or we've misheard, or we've made an incorrect assumption. And for me, that is really on the pulse of it, in terms of the work that we are doing around grief, around trauma, is how we hold each other's stories, and have learned to do that, or are learning to do that. So, and then that enables the work that we do. And for me, I think about trauma and grief, and the experience of that, as I know it in my own bones, is that one is taken as a human into a real liminal space. And there are very few spaces in our modern world where we get to actually voice what we're going through, what it's like to be grieving, what it's like to have been through something, or to be haunted by something that isn't even ours from this generation. And playback is one of the very few spaces that welcome, create some space for those stories to be told, to be held, for people to be really seen. We do that obviously with intention, and intentionally with the understanding that in the community, witnessing the story being told, there's a move out of isolation, that we are able, as Samson's mentioned, to use metaphor and symbol as containers to hold the trauma, and to integrate the experience, which is always overwhelming. And it's not something that we can fix in one show, but it's something that we can move in the direction of integration, of deeper understanding, of processing. And in order to do that, we need to be seen. Our voices have to be heard. We don't do that in isolation as humans. And, because of the history of oppression in our country, there are so many voices that just haven't had platforms to be heard. And our job really is to create those. So I've been in preparation for this interview, because it also feels, I'm being interviewed now, but I'm really just representing a company of people. So in preparation for this, we've been really unpacking, and I've asked people to think about what is it that we really do, and who are we, what's our company doing, and just wanting to include all the voices of the company. So these are our collective thoughts on the matter.
Yeah, of course. And Sam, you work across many sectors: education, health, strategy. And how does playback fit in your work? And how is it playback theater in Botswana now?
Okay. The common thread across all the sectors is that in each and every sector, there is a story to be told. So immediately, wherever there is a story to be told, that's a platform for playback theatre. And I've noticed that over the past over 20 years that I have been using playback theatre as part of what I do. For example, I'm also a public health specialist, and I work around behavior change. And, behavior change never happens from outside. It has to start from inside. And there is no better way of helping people to really introspect and go inside than the power of playback theatre, the power of stories. I've witnessed so many times where, whether it's an HIV and AIDS workshop or it's a cancer symposium, whenever we get to the stories, just one story, you would realize when you are debriefing how it connects to different people, and you would also hear how people are saying, when she said this, I really looked at what I do and realized it's not the right thing to do. That's something it was a trigger, and then the intention to change comes from listening to somebody else. And what's more powerful about playback in the work that we do is that we used to come with pre-made plays, differently put, we used to bring our stories to the people. But now what playback theatre offers us is something that we have always wanted to do but didn't know how to do it. Because right now we have taken the ball back into the people, into the societies. Now they are telling their stories and we are only mirroring it back to them. So it is not about us, it is not about our stories, but it's their stories. And there's one thing that really amazed me. We went to some mining area in Palabora in South Africa. I met this gentleman from the Netherlands, the Kotler company. I met him through a participant also at the Playback Theatre. She kept telling me about him until we met and we went to do some work together. We had like over 10,000 miners. We were doing a strategy for the mine. And our role was to help them tell different stories which will identify real issues that should go into the strategy. And I think it was one of my most memorable work that I've done using playback, where you know I could feel goosebumps just seeing at the power of playback in whatever platform you place it. There we were in a strategy formulation workshop, which had nothing to do with art and playback theatre beautifully found its place and was so much appreciated. And for over the 10 days that we were there, every single day we were listening stories about nepotism, stories about this, and playing it back, debriefing. So it was very powerful. So that is how playback theatre has played a role across the sectors. It's the same thing for education when we are at schools. There is even worse, you know, when you say, can I have somebody to tell a story, and you are in the midst of children, 10 of them rush to the teller's chair. So it's really amazing.
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, I just realized I didn't say anything about Drama for Life playback, which is, I mean, really actually the reason I'm here. So I'm wondering whether I should
Welcome,
come.
of course, please do. And also, please, after that, say about your academic work and how it shaped or your playback practice or the other way around. So please.
Okay, I'm cognizant of time, so I'm going to try and like condense it all as much as I can. So yeah, so just to say that, you know, as I think I mentioned that, you know, my entrance into playback theatre was through this master's program, Drama for Life, which is incredible. It still exists. And then, you know, I landed up doing training in going off to go and do the training, and I met Sam, and in that training, he told a story about his connection to HIV and AIDS and how it had affected his community. And it was such an extraordinary moment and kind of floored me, because we had to be all the way in the United States of America in this little bubble for Sam to tell the story that was not possible to be told in a South African context in an applied theatre program about HIV and AIDS education. And I thought, well, how is this possible? What is it about playback and about the training context that allowed this to happen? And that was the seed, that was the moment where I found my focus for that research, for my master's project, about what is it about the training in playback theatre that creates the conditions to share our most difficult stories about specifically HIV and AIDS, sex and relationships. And the idea of then doing the training during the master's was also that we could then become a company. And I remember after sort of, you know, soon towards graduating, Warren Neebe, the director of the program at the time, he said to me, what are you going to do? Like, where are you going to go with Drama for Life playback? And he said, do you want to stay here as a project? Because also the idea was that the project hub of Drama for Life, that there would be the academic program, but then also a project space for what was produced, as part of the master's program. And that playback theatre was it was a baby of Drama for Life in that way. And I'm so grateful for that invitation that Warren made, because being still associated as part of the university, having Playback Theatre as an in-house company was the most perfect model for us, because I could just be the artistic director. I didn't have to worry about the administration of how I paid people. I didn't have to worry about, finding money to rent space. The networks were also there as part of, being part of the university. And so it was such an amazing way to kind of start a playback company. And that also I had mentorship, that I wasn't alone, because as we all know, to run a company, I mean, and I was I was going to say a baby. I was 25 at the time. I thought I could take on the world, and I did. But, so much, needing so much support in that process of establishing a company, and to have, Warren there, and so many of the people, my Drama for Life colleagues. I mean, Sam, Lalu, who I know is part of this call, who were so generous in also just in our early beginnings, helping us learn how to do this thing called playback, and challenging us in different ways. And then, that in 2013, Sheree Halley, she then became the co-director, and she did leadership in playback. And that extraordinary shift of sharing that leadership, and that then, 17 years later, we still exist, and that that I began something, but the story is way bigger than the founding of it. And that's exactly how the story of Drama for Life playback is meant to be, that it lives on, and that, Taryn Lee and Sheree have been the directors, and many people, the majority of them, have been there for many years. And that it's just been an extraordinary privilege to grow as a human being through all those different phases, and to come to the point now where I'm, unfortunately, because love takes you to places you don't expect. I then moved to Norway, and left Drama for Life playback. But then I was incredibly lucky to get this PhD position, where I could spend 4 years writing my love letter to Drama for Life playback through my PhD, really kind of raising and finding ways to articulate the extraordinary work that we've been doing in post-apartheid South Africa, and how does that fit into the larger conversation of playback theatre globally? What do we have on the tip of Africa to offer the rest of the playback world? And we have a flip load, and I say that like a toot our horn, for all of us here, in terms of, Africa and South Africa. And, in terms of those contributions specifically, in terms of research. So first of all, to say that, I as part of that work, I had to read all the research, or peer review research, that had been written about playback theatre in English. And then also all the grey literature, and just to kind of think, wow, well, then how do we come into the conversation around what the knowledge that has already been produced, and to build on that. And something that really stood out to me, well, sort of two things, was the one was there was very little that was documented about how playback theatre was being used in post-conflict societies. So that was one area that stood out, but also, and this is so fascinating to me, that so much of the playback research had focused on the audience, but not as us as playback artists, as performers, and no research explaining, well, how do we actually do what we do in the art form of playback theatre? How does the ensemble kind of make the artistic decisions that they make, and why, and how do we find ways to kind of make that transparent? And so that was something that was really important that I kind of picked up on. And then part of what happens as all research goes along is things that we have not named in this playback theatre community, or it's taken a long time to name. And one of that is, the role of whiteness and the impact of whiteness in our performances and how that plays out. How do we work with race and name race, and particularly make whiteness visible and work with the impact of our whiteness in performance? And also, what does working with whiteness mean on a kind of bigger structural level in the playback world, from IPTN to our affiliate schools to all the structures, because it has had such an enormous impact, and yet it has not always been named. And so when South Africa, when the conference came, when we won the bid to host the conference, and that was not just Drama for Life, that was a collective of playbackers from different groups, even though many of them, or most of them, had all been part of Drama for Life. It was also about asking and inviting the broader community to have conversations about these things, about race, about our difficult histories, about issues of justice, and that part of our playback history has been there from the beginning. It may not necessarily have been kind of very directly articulated. I say that, but then also I say that that's not true, because I can go to quotes with Jonathan and Joe when they have named it specifically from the early years, but it had been lost. And that, how do we not be afraid of saying that playback theatre actually is political, and that it is an issue of justice, and how do we then, what might that look like in our different contexts? So really, that I think has been how playback has shaped my academic work, and vice versa, because it's been structural, it's been on a performance level. I mean, I was, reading these incredible research papers from playbackers that nobody ever reads, and then suddenly in a performance, and this concept from Ray Dennis from Australia about naming difference, suddenly I could embody it as a conductor, and it just again, just that research doesn't have to be out there. It is relevant to our practice, and finding those links of how to make it relevant in our practice and to continue
Amazing
that.
work. Yeah, really amazing work, Kathy. And Lesley, I want to ask you, do you have particular role in playback theater you love most? Are you an actor, conductor, and musician and trainer? Are you all of these? Or you have less or maybe more roles?
Currently, I'm loving playing. In my working life, I'm a drama therapist, and so Groundspring is the opportunity for me to kind of play and embody the story, and that's my first love, I would say. we are, as a company, really working on being quite fluid with the roles that we are. We've had some incredibly strong conductors. Paula Kingwell was our initial conductor for many, many years, and she held that role with such gravitas. None of us, went near it because she just did it incredibly. And then we had Heather Schiff and Sophia Kondaris also hold those roles, and Heather still conducts. I have stepped into conducting from time to time, but I think, I think a little bit touching on what Kathy's saying, there's, if as a white person being a conductor, that's, it's a thing. It's like, depending on what audience we're working with, it's often not appropriate, frankly, to have a white conductor. We can do a lot better in terms of, I guess, representation, language, etc. So we right now basically saying that no one's allowed to stay fixed. Even our musician is brought onto stage these days and has to perform and embody roles, and we're playing with all of us feeling flexible. But my first love is as a player. I love stepping onto stage. Oh, I love it. I'm terrified of it, but I love it. Stage, not knowing what is going to come through this mouth and what will happen in this bone, what will happen between us. And for me, that's the magic, where something bigger than us takes over, and that I really love. Cindy about a project that we've been involved in this year. Drama for Life's also been involved in it, so that has also been exciting. The Reconnect and Care project, which is a kind of a WITS research project, but across a number of provinces in South Africa, working with school children between the ages of 10 and 12-ish. And playback theatre is being used to kind of bookend the process of the formation of an eco drama club, they call it. And that has been a really special project on so many levels. We've been working in a particular community called Tafelsig on the outskirts of Cape Town, which is a community that let's say the real theme that's come up in working with the children has been around safety, and children basically not feeling safe in a lot of their day-to-day life. So it's a community that is affected by poverty, violence, and children are extremely vulnerable. And it's a small community, but what was extraordinary is that one of our players had 10 years of her childhood in the same community. And for me, just reflecting on it is like this incredible weaving that happens through narratives and through stories that is a little bit beyond what one can even really describe or have words for, like that happens in audiences anyway. We kind of say, well, like, what was the shared story told by all of us today? If we kind of take the threads of all the stories, what was the community story that was told? But in this case, the threading of stories of one of our players and the stories of the audience members as children was really significant. The opportunity for her to reflect on this part of childhood that had felt quite sort of like a chapter that happened that wasn't often thought about, but obviously had a tremendous impact. The sense of safety in her own childhood, basically, and the impact of that. And I want to say something in her words, because we've been chatting. she said, I was blown away when I heard that we'd be doing a show in Tafelsig. I didn't ever think that I'd have the opportunity to go back to my childhood there. It was the community I lived in for 10 years of my life, from 5 to 15. My heart immediately resonated with the voices of these children that are not heard. And that safety has been a theme that resonates, across decades. And, the children were sharing stories with us of just not feeling safe walking to school, of having all these kinds of incidents, not feeling safe even with the adults in their community. And Cindy could reflect on being the possibility then in the rehearsals to play with her own story, to tell her own story, to be seen, and how that was powerfully healing for her, reconnecting her to her story, processing, integrating this aspect of her childhood. And she described her heart pouring out then in the performance with the children, the series of performances we had. With a deep sense of gratitude, being able to give the stories back. And I loved this. And to create beauty, she said, where we could restore pride and dignity for the children in them telling these stories of feeling so unsafe. And I mean, yeah, it stays with me a lot that the work is sort of on all these kind of levels. Our work and the depth of our work is made possible by her courage to be vulnerable and to share her story, and for us to, and for her to allow us to stand alongside her in holding her in a story that, has deep and traumatic roots. And then from that, we're able to create a community with the children in the show. And I think not just play back the story that we've heard, but to deeply, soulfully resonate, hold, attune, hold meaning making, and even when it's not kind of spoken, somehow the sense of there's perspective. I mean, we do that all the time in playback, right? We can offer the bird's eye view or the perspective, or, other people coming into a community and mirroring something. But here we had an actual adult, who has overcome the same obstacles in her childhood from the same community. And there was, something really synchronous and deeply, powerful, I think, for all of us. So that's some of the work we're doing. And we have the opportunity to work with some incredible organizations. We love, partnering with organizations rather than just running public shows, because then the work can be more sustainable, which, feels appropriate with, the levels of trauma and what have you that we're working with. So we partner with the organizations and have some, fortunately, we're invited back to work on various programs annually. And we'd always love to do more work and really need more funding in order to do that.
Yeah, always, right. And some, you invited Jonathan Fox to Botswana. What impact did that have? And also, what is the situation now in Playback Theatre life? What are your projects and works in Playback Theatre field?
Thank you. Yeah, I think that was a cherry on top for Jonathan to actually come and honor us with his presence. After the struggle of going back and forth of bringing him, and when it ultimately happened, when I was with Professor David Kerr on our way to get him from the airport, I couldn't contain myself. And in my mind, I had two big things or expectations that I had from his coming. One was that, for the longest of time, I was working with this team that only received training from me as somebody who has worked with them, on the conventional theater. And I was seeing a real opportunity here of them, experiencing it. And what best present would we get to experience it from the founder's view, to be trained. They were so excited to say that when I told them that you would actually have the chance to be trained by the founder himself. So I saw it as an opportunity for expanding people, personnel that have been trained, which would be available to spread the work of playback theatre and the development work. And at another level, there's this gentleman. He was a lecturer also at the University of Botswana, and we have been debating, me and him, from what he heard about playback theatre. He was skeptical that it would find root in Botswana and be useful, and people would find it useful, entertaining, and engaging. He didn't believe. He thought it's a form that only belongs in America and Europe, and it couldn't find a place in Africa. He's this Pan-Africanist guys. So I was looking forward to. I told him, promise me one thing, that you will attend. And he did actually attend the workshop. And, when it was time for the participants to tell a story, this guy shocked me. He stood up and he sat on the teller's chair. The way the guy was skeptical, I just thought he was going to just make fun of it or tell about a story, some funny, impossible story. He shocked me when he started telling me. He told one of the deepest, heaviest, very personal story. I couldn't believe my eyes when he transformed and he just took it all out. And I then realized that what happened to me on my first day there at Vasa was now happening to him, because for you to tell such a story, you need to trust the process, and you need to trust that your story will be held and the confidence will be maintained, because it was a very heavy. I mean, I was imagining if I was the conductor by then, I think I would be shaking. But thanks God, it was Jonathan Fox on the conductor's chair. And this guy was given the biggest present of his life. By the time the session finished, he came to me and gave me a hand and he just said, "This is powerful." That was all he said, and he left. And so that was the impact for my other objective, and also my team. Their confidence really increased after receiving the training. So as a result, they could now start, as they were touring the country, they could start using playback theatre even in. Now we could trust them with people's stories. They were very good, and especially he became very good with conducting. So the training really helped improve the personnel on the ground. So that was a very big impact. And thirdly, we planted a seed at the biggest university in the country, of playback theatre, which remains this day. Playback theatre is still the talk of what they do, and I'm so excited that now we have certified trainers just here in South Africa, and actually my comrade and friend Warren Nebe recently, unfortunately I was out of the country, but he came and conducted a workshop here in my country. So we are so excited now that we have the trainers and more trainers, so we would expand it and make sure that what Jonathan started now grows even bigger. Thank you.
Amazing. And Kathy, do you still practice in playback in post-apartheid context? And what are your current projects?
So my current project is to revive playback, my playback life in Norwegian context. So because now I've moved, but I think I'm on the board of Tzveta, the South African Playback Theatre Association, and that is my foot and my commitment to still serving the South African Playback Theatre community. So that, I suppose, is where my African heart is still there, and balancing that now also with my life in Norway, and wanting to build playback up in Trondheim, which is a different process it's a different culture, and Sinne and Jan, who've been very instrumental in building up playback in Norway, and have done that really well. It's not a straightforward journey, so yeah, but lots of different ideas and different things that I want to do, and of course I'm always going to be connected to Drama for Life playback.
Yes, of course. And question to three of you. What is your vision for the future of playback theater? What's next? What do you want to be? What do you imagine for the future of playback theater as we celebrating our 5th years?
Are you going to say some jump in there, Lesley, or? Well, I mean, I think for me, it's of course, something that we, the launch of Tzveta and having the conference in South Africa was such a huge moment. So my vision and my wish is that in South Africa we can build our networks with each other. There's now so many groups and people being trained, and that we have so many resources within our South African playback, and to connect with that, and then for that to grow into a Pan-African network. And Warren Nebe, with his connections to Botswana, has been very much part of that, and Mozambique. And so I really hope that this incredible form it will grow on the continent. It takes more resources and a lot more work, but it's possible with all of us.
Yeah, I had already started talking about it, like just the collaboration now, because now we have accredited trainers just next door. So the sky is the limit, because how we have been doing it here, because at my company, it's a commercial company, it's a for-profit company. So we have always integrated playback. We've never had just a pure playback theater company, because how we survive is that the companies they give us instruction, and normally you find that there's pressure to do issue-based they would be saying, okay, it's environment, so we want something on environment, and they will give us points to. So we have always integrated such that as much as we come with a play for their environment that covers everything, we would start with playback theatre. And we found, they always found and they always loved it because it opened and it brought in their staff members, their stories. And these days they even include it in the request that, okay, we want so much minutes of playback and so much minutes of the other issue-based thing. So going forward, and collaborating with our colleagues in South Africa, we should be doing more training such that other people elsewhere who can have like purely playback theatre groups. And my vision is to see those groups planted in various areas of the country. Thank you.
I was thinking, I don't think my vision at this stage of my game is grand. I think it's kind of ordinary. It's like to keep on doing what we've been doing for like more than 20 years, to keep the company growing and fluid, probably in my older years to be like stepping a little more, aside. And I think we've always dreamt that we would have like 3 different companies that can perform in different languages. And I think that's something that I would really still love to see happen because of our diverse context and depending where we're performing, making sure we really have the right fit. I just want to keep on, like working with our existing company, the incredible people that are part of it currently, welcoming new members, and continue just hearing and telling stories. I think, I think the vision is to continue doing what we're doing, basically.
Yeah, let it be. And in the chat, we have greetings from Jonathan. He said to Bea, please greet everyone for me and say I would be there, but my recovery prevents me. Thank you. And also, Warren wrote also to Bea to give our apologies. We are busy planning our playback tour to Cape Town's Living Rights Festival. Love to you all. And now we are going to the moment that all of you that are present will have opportunity to speak with each other in a breakout room. So we'll have 15 minutes to connect and share, and you can share in the small group what insight of story from today's conversation resonated with you. Or of course you can get to know each other and present your current playback theater work. So please enjoy these 15 minutes and we'll call you back when the time is up, and we'll have our final moments together where you, audience, can ask questions or share your thoughts, or also other presenters of African Playback Theatre can also share stories or tell memories. So now please enjoy your 15 minutes in the breakout room. See you then. Welcome back, everyone. I hope this short time in breakout rooms gave you a moment to connect and reflect. We'd like now to open the floor for a few more voices from the African Playback Theatre community. We would be really happy if we can hear more voices. Or, of course, if our speakers, Sam, Kathy, Lesley, want to say something more that came up after the break, so please welcome to share. And after that, we'll open also the microphone for questions or sharing from the people from other countries. Damilola, please come.
Thank you so much, Tzveta. and good to see everyone here. Uh, I want to say that it's very important that we give the kind of recognition that is it deserves to the Drama for Life as an institution and the Drama for Life as a playback theater company, because if not all of us, about 98% of us who are doing playback theater in the whole of Africa today learned playback theater as a result of our association with Drama for Life. I remember my first encounter with playback theater. Kathy and probably Taryn were performing, and then I just moved to South Africa to do my honors, and then I was invited to tell a story about how I got the challenges surrounding getting my visa to study and to go to school. And at that moment, I can't forget that moment. I, I became so engrossed in playback theater that I had to reach out to Warren, and also thanks to Warren, gave me Jonathan's email address, and I started reaching out to Jonathan, and then Veronica Nida came in that same year, and I did a workshop with her. Following year, I was back in Nigeria briefly for like a week or two. I was producing a play, a scripted play, but I had just fallen in love with playback theater, and then I told my actors, and I said, we're going to do this play, but just like Samson said, before we do this scripted play, we're going to introduce ourselves doing playback theater. And that for me, Samson made a statement at the beginning that storytelling is part of the culture in Africa, whether you're in Botswana, or you're in South Africa, or you're in Zimbabwe, or you're in Nigeria, or you're in the gold mine of Ghana. It is storytelling. However, I always had that doubt of, do people really want to share their story? Yes, people want to share story, but how open are people to sharing personal story? And that day I discovered that, yeah, playback theater was going to work in Nigeria, because the audience received it, and it became what it is today, over 15 years and counting, and then about 15 years and counting. And then the playback theater is, I've done playback in Nigeria, I've done in Ghana. And my goal right now is to, I've been to a couple of gatherings, and I see a lot of, I see the number of people of my color in the room. I've been to playback theater camp for the past couple of years. I missed this year because I missed my flight. I got to the airport late, and then so I couldn't go to the playback theater camp this year. But in that room, that was where I met Steve. That room, I was like the only, I think not just in the room, in the whole of the city of, I think it was Serbia or so, Steve. I was the only black person in that space, and then and this for me is just more than that single picture of what happened in that space. It's about every other space. How many people of my color are in the space to make the contribution into the playback theater world? And that's a challenge that I set for myself when I joined the board of Center for Playback Theatre. I was telling them the last couple of weeks that I couldn't achieve that fully, but in the next couple of months, the goal is I'm starting an internship program where we identify young people within 10 African countries and more to apply, where we do playback theater online, working with some playback theater practitioners online to help people. Because, and why are we doing this? Playback theater is really expensive. We have to be honest. From the core training to active conducting to advanced training, then to leadership, which I have been unable to do for the past 4 years that I've been invited to, because who's gonna afford $4,000 or $3,000 or $2,000 when you get a discount in a nation where probably the minimum wage at the end of the year is just about $500. So having to encourage practitioners who can also step into that leadership role. And I think I'm throwing it out there. Thank God Josalas is in here to see how we can be more inclusive to communities that cannot afford at a certain stage. And I like what Lalu said. What are we doing with what we have? And the answer is we're trying to reach out to more communities, but also there are some restrictions. You're not a trainer if you don't have, you can train, but not officially, but you're not a recognized trainer if you don't have leadership and a lot of other things. So how many people of my color would have the opportunity to get into that phase to be a recognized trainer? So I hope that we'll be able to address this gap in the coming year, so that when we're celebrating Playback Theatre at 60, we can have more representation, not just Africa, even among Black Americans. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Damian. Please stay for a second. Just I want to acknowledge that you were the only one who was with me through the whole series, and I'm really grateful for that because it was quite of a journey whole year, a month after month. So I really appreciate your professionalism and devotion to playback, but also to this celebration. So thank you so much for being part. And I see in the comments, Lalu Mukuku want to share something. So
I'm also sorry. I just wanted to say this, that in June, I am open, Kathy, just sharing this now. We're open to do like a first playback theater gathering, playback and improv gathering in Nigeria. Not like we had the playback conference a couple of years ago, but we want to do a playback theater camp, bringing the world to Nigeria in June.
oh, that's great you say that because I forgot that I wanted to ask, do you have annual gathering? Because in Bulgaria, we have gathering more than 10 years each year. And I think this is an amazing tool for the whole society to gather and to explore and to, of course, grow. And I wanted also to ask, maybe some of you later can answer, how many companies do you have in all African continents? If you know, I would like us to know now.
There's been conversations about having gatherings in Africa, but I think before we have an African gathering, we would need to have the nations gathering, because there are a lot of things we have to consider in having African gatherings, visa restrictions, even within Africa, which is something very unique. Travel costs within Africa is a bit expensive. So we are hoping that in the next couple of years, also, if you want to have gatherings across Africa, how many people do we actually have in the 54 countries that actually practice that? So I think the first thing to address is increasing the number of practitioners, and then have national gathering. Then we have a continental gathering. I'm sure, I think it was Tarin, and we had that conversation about 2 years ago, and then we're hoping that, well, with this one we're having in June, it will be a beginning of
It sounds
gatherings to come.
amazing. Yeah, it's great that you do that because this is a really great path. So please, Lalu Mokuku, welcome.
Thank you so much. I don't want to come on camera because I'm not dressed decently for the gathering. I wanted to once again also echo the sentiments that Kathy has said, Samson has said, and also now Demi has said in terms of acknowledging Drama for Life, especially Warren Nebe, in introducing many of us to this art form. I also want to say that I think you raise an important issue around the expensive training of playback theatre, which I think is actually changing because we now have other trainers in the region, for example. So one would not necessarily have to travel to the US or to India or to far off places. But in South Africa, for example, if I'm correct, we can also offer leadership. There are people that can also offer leadership. And if that is the case, I would also want to acknowledge that it is very expensive. Sometimes, even in rands, this type of training. So maybe there could be conversations of how to make that more accessible. But these trainings, I also want to say, they are at different levels. And because they're at different levels, some of these trainings don't require costs. And so with what we have already, there's a lot that we could use. I need to say that I often find it very humiliating, the process of trying to prove how you can afford or not afford a course. Because for you to qualify for some of these things, it's almost like a writing to beg that you want to be seen that you're poor. I want to reiterate my invitation to Samson, to Kathy, and to Damilola and and Lesley around the writing, some publication of the stories, even if it's just the stories of what has emerged in Africa, because I see that you all bring such unique aspect that I feel that Africa needs to hear about. And I also want to thank Kathy and the team for bringing the conference to Africa, because I feel that it has added such a beautiful nuance in that, if I speak for myself, having been introduced to someone like Steve, because in my academic writing, I've never seen such care in caring someone to write an article. And it is something that I found that it is still in alliance with the ethos that inform playback theatre writing, playback theatre. So the editors of the journal, I want to thank you, and particularly thank Steve for the care shown in the publication.
Lalu, where are you based, and what is, do you have a company, or how many years you practice? You practice in Africa?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I am in South Africa, and I trained. Actually, my initial introduction was with Kathy and Samson in 2008, and I have actually interacted with some trainings that Jonathan offers, that Joe has offered. I've also been trained by Warren, by Shure, by Mamati, by many local practitioners. I am based at Rose University, and I facilitate learning in applied theatre. And as part of the course, the different forms that are found in this realm, more or less like Warren Nebe. I also have introduced a playback theatre in my course, and every year we do what we call an orientation show, where we use playback theatre to debrief the first year students as part of what their experience in university life is. But also every term, which means guaranteed 4 performances every year, where we tackle different themes at the university. I have also played different roles. I've been a conductor, but right now I've been a player, but right now I am an artistic director of a playback theatre company called Meqoqo Playback Theatre Collective. Meqoqo is a Sotho word for stories. So we actually honor the essence of coming together to tell stories, but we are biased much more even though we're at the university, but we serve the larger community. In Makhanda, it's another province in South Africa called the East Cape.
Thank you so much. for joining the conversation. In the chat, Volodymyr Savino from Ukraine say it would be interesting to read an article about the specifics of the development of playback theater in Africa, and not even training, but what social needs do companies respond to? So maybe Kathy or Samson or Lesley, you can put something in the chat. And also, Steve, do you have a link maybe to put in the chat to the journal, so maybe people who are not familiar with it can see it now? It would be really lovely. And I want to continue with our speakers now about how many companies do you know there are currently now in the region, or what do you know about the development? How many are there?
That is a good question. I can't count off at the top. Can you guys help me here? Kokozana, Mikoko, Drama for Life Playback, Bonfire, Ground Spring.
Art for Life, the new one Warren founded.
Yeah. Pula Playback. So that we're about probably about 10 or 11 companies now. Mostly in Southern Africa.
Amazing,
And then we have
huh?
Playback Nigeria, the ensemble.
And Playback.
Yes, yes, really amazing. And do you see someone in the audience who you know that is being part of the journey? Maybe you want to acknowledge someone who is here, or please, if someone from our audience has been part from the history in the region, now is the moment for you to join before we are going towards the final words of our speakers. So please, if you want to share something, now would be the moment. And also, of course, I will open the mic for questions or sharings from others in the audience now.
Yeah. I just also briefly just want to also Corinne Gisler, also that, that she was from, early on saying, when can I come to South Africa? When can I come to South Africa? And I was thinking, oh, but we don't have any money to pay you. You can't come until we find the money. And just the the generosity in coming to us and to not let obstacles stand in your way. And it was also a dream for us to have Joe come to South Africa, which finally was possible with the conference. And just, without Joe's support also as part of that, the South Africa, the IPTN conference in South Africa. We wouldn't have been able to make it happen in the way it was. And so it was a South African dream, but it was bigger than that. It was dependent on this global community that we have, and just forever grateful for that support.
I want to mention that we have amazing interviews from this series with Joe Salas and Karin Gisler. You can find them in our YouTube playlist for Generation Speak. So if you miss them, you can enjoy them whatever you want. And do you have some comments, others? Lesley, Sam, do you want to say something? Of course, please write in the chat or put your hand up if you want to say something, all of you here and now with us in the audience.
After you, Sam.
Okay, yeah, nothing much, but just to say to everyone that part of the community, to say we have a beautiful thing in our hands. we have a beautiful gift, which is playback theatre. And we just have to go out there and share it and share it, because, yeah, we have experienced it. So it's good other people to share. I think that's all I have. Besides really thanking everybody for organizing this. It was so wonderful to ultimately get in touch with the community. You know, I'm more revived, and I'm so happy to see Joe after such a long time, and see all of you. So I'm so grateful and so thankful. Thank you.
Lesley?
Yeah, I would just love to extend a really warm invitation to anyone who wants to come to Cape Town from our brother and sister companies across Africa and beyond. Although we don't have formal trainers and certified trainers, we have lots of experience and lots of heart and lots of willingness to share what we've been up to for the last 20 years. Come and play. We meet most weeks and really love having visitors and love sharing what we're doing and learning from you. And I would also just like to acknowledge the company members who also inputted into this interview, Reko Kobela, and who many know, and Heather Schiff and Jess Mason and Cindy Diedrichs, and the whole current Groundspring company. I'm here just representing a bigger community. Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, of course. Is there comments or questions from all of you here? Do you want to say something?
Joe's got her hand up.
Yeah? Yes, please.
First of all, I just want to say I'm so sorry to have missed the interview itself. I'm teaching at a college and upstate, and I just wasn't able to be available earlier, but I will watch it. I look forward to watching it, the recording. And I just want to say it is so good to see Samson, especially. It has been a very long time, and I want to tell you that the work that you did, I don't know even if you're still doing it, but very early on, you were using playback, as I remember, for sort of needs assessment in relation to AIDS treatment and so on. And it was one of the first very, very practical applications of playback in a, way beyond any kind of theatre setting or even educational setting. And I just want you to know how influential that was and how often I've referred to it in my teaching. And it's been an inspiration, I think, to other practitioners to know that playback can be used in that extremely fundamental kind of way. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Joe. So is everyone here set? Whatever
Yeah.
you want to say. Yeah.
I was just going to encourage people to please follow our Playback in Africa page on Facebook. We have a Playback in Africa. That's one way we can actually know those who are doing Playback in Africa. So I want to encourage people to
I
follow
already
us.
joined. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you are part of South Africa and are you in South Africa and you haven't joined Tzveta, then please do. We have, our address should be online. I do not know it off by hand, but it should be online. We have a Facebook page as well, so please connect through there.
Yeah, you can put it in the chat if you want. And our speakers now, Sam, Kathy, Lesley, will have your final words. Maybe you will share something that you missed, or something that you want to share at these final moments here with us. So, and until you think what you want to say, I will read from the chat. Johnny Yablonka from Australia is writing, thank you for sharing your personal journeys and those of your fellow playbackers. It was grounding and affirming. And Johnny, thank you for being here. I assume it's the middle of the night with you or something. I remember it was really hard for us to find the hours of this series, and it was really, really hard. I know that for some of you it's really strange time, but thank you for those of you that are with us, no matter what time is it in your country. So yeah, please, Sam and Kathy and Lesley, say a few final words.
Oh, I was looking for my notes and I couldn't find my notes, but I'm going to just read something very shortly. So this is about thinking, about on reflecting on playback theatre's role in post-apartheid South Africa and its contribution. And I found this quote from Joe and Jonathan. So playback's vision was then, and this is the quote, the idealistic view upon which playback theatre was based, that everyone's story had value, contained within it a call to social justice, end quote. This type of theatre and storytelling was not grounded on the basis of an agenda for self-creation, but about giving a platform, open quote again, to all who do not belong to the traditional holders of power and visibility, end quote. Jonathan and Joe, page 27, 2021, and I think that must come from personal stories and public spaces. And I think one of the things that playback does in South Africa is that it gives such hope in a country that has experienced apartheid, colonialism, and where people's stories, the majority of people, their stories have been devalued, and playback theatre gives value to those stories. And that is enormous in itself. And I'm just so grateful to be part of that story and be amongst African playbackers here today, and those who have been part of my story, because it's constantly made me have to question and ask myself, what is my role as a white South African playbacker, and all the things that we need to address, and the issues of access, and how do we do better? How do we do better at home, and how do we do better on a bigger structural level in playback? So just thank you.
Thank you. Sam?
Yeah, though I have already said my last words. Basically, it's just that I count myself very lucky to have encountered playback, and I'm trying to imagine how I used to connect with people at a personal level without playback. Because right now, even as Joe was mentioning, for me, playback goes way beyond just telling the stories, but even as a tool for other development issues, as you mentioned, like needs assessment. And even right now, I'm using it. I've started a PhD for cultural policy and management, and playback theatre would be one of the tools that I would be using as part of data collection. So I'm exploring more, and I'll take up the offer that Lalu has offered. I really believe that, yeah, we need to document most of these things so that they can really outlive us and continue to benefit the world. So I thank everybody for being part of this beautiful journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much, our wonderful speakers, Samson, Lesley, Kathy. Thank you for your courage, your clarity, and for the many years you've dedicated for growing playback theater in Africa and beyond. Your voices have truly expanded our global circle. And this was the final interview in our series First Generation Speaks. Woo! Woo!
Well done, Tzveta. Well done.
But of course, we continue to celebrate, and I want to thank, of course, our technical team, Beata Somoji, Damilola, Apotieri, Donio, for making this space possible behind the scenes with care and skills. And of course, to the full team from the Center of Playback Theatre, International Playback Theatre Network, thank you for ongoing work to hold and grow this international community. And I remind you, all recordings, including today's, will be available in YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram for more videos, archive materials, and updates from around the world. Once again, I'm Tzveta Baliyska, and it has been an honor to host this global series with you. Stay connected, stay inspired, and keep listening. Goodbye for now.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye,
Tzveta.
everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
for being here.
Love to everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Tzveta. Thank you, Dami.
Bye.
Lovely to see you,
Bye.
Kathy.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Karina, nice to see you.
Yeah, lovely to see all of you.
Yeah.
You too. I'm very emotional right now.
Okay. Do you want to
Yeah.
say something, Karen?
That's just amazing, this form. It's just amazing what it does in the world, you know? I mean, hearing Samson's story of this professor of the university who totally opened up, and just hear your stories and see where it's been done and what it does. And yeah, I'm so really emotional. And it has given me so much. Playback has given me my life. It's been my vocation, and it's such a great feeling to be part of our community.